Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another malicious compliance Reddit video. In our first story, travel editions adding up. Let's jump right in. In the late 90s of the last century, while I was still working at the international organization, things at the office deteriorated a bit. People were rotating in and out of the office, and my manager was one of them. The specimen that became my new manager was what my grandmother, with a knowing glance, would call special. Entitled and superior, according to himself, let's call him Frank. Frank and I did wholeheartedly agree on one thing though, the dislike we had for each other. One of the tasks I had assumed was head of protocol for my boss, the High Commissioner. This basically means that I had to ensure that he was treated according to his station, with all rights and privileges awarded to him as an international dignitary. Oh, and I had to look solemn. Our office was working closely together with a number of NGOs on several issues. We would make policy and they would implement it on the ground with projects, etc. One of the NGOs was organizing a conference where we would connect policymakers with international legal experts. The objective being international experts don't bite. Don't try to invent the wheel, call them. The director of said NGO visited us often, and we got along like a house on fire, much to the annoyance of Frank, who thought I didn't know my station. So, when High Commissioner was asked whether I could assist with the organization, High Commissioner agreed immediately. I had built up somewhat of a reputation in that field, so it wasn't considered strange. So far, so good. I helped arranging the hotel, drivers, interpreters, liaised with various ministries and experts. The NGO got used to calling me all hours, weekdays, and weekends to check or discuss things. I didn't mind, I worked my proverbial butt off. We had rented conference rooms in a 5-star hotel in Vienna. The police would supply security, the airport would receive the guests, and all people would be staying in the same hotel. The only thing was, due to agenda restraints of various participants, the conference would start on Friday and end on Monday. Everybody assumed, me included, that I would be there. There was one detail I had forgotten, to ask Frank's permission. I needed to have a form signed to authorize my travel, otherwise I wouldn't get paid for working, much less travel there. On a Monday morning, I walked into Frank's office and dropped the blank authorization form on his desk, with as neutral a look as possible, trying to pass it off as an annoying detail. "Sir, concerning the conference, could you sign the document for approval? I know it's a bother, but please." He picked it up, looked at it, and holding it, checked something on his computer. "This conference isn't organized by us, but by the NGO?" "Correct, the boss is a guest." "So the rooms and travel are paid for by the NGO?" "Correct." "So you'll be a guest. You may go. I'll grant you the Friday and Monday as paid leave and nothing else." He filled in the authorization form, signed it, gave it to me, and gave this little wave that you use towards servants. "That will be all." You have to be flipping kidding me. I stood up, kept my jaws as clenched as my fists, and walked out fuming. Getting back to my office, I was met with one of the policy advisors who wanted to discuss the details of one of the meetings. I think I radiated an air of dejection because he asked me what was wrong. I told him. "You can't accept that." I shrugged. "There's nothing much I can do, he is my manager." As he stood up, he said, "Well, we'll see about that." I went about my day and managed to push it to the back of my mind. A few days later, I was called into the High Commissioner's office. Sitting behind his desk with papers piled up in great stacks, he never learned computer, he was talking with the director of the NGO who was sitting opposite of him. They seemed very relaxed. High Commissioner looked at me and smiled. "Ah, have a seat. I gather you will be working with us in your spare time." I nodded. "Yeah, Frank didn't give me authorization." "Well, correct, and I will not change one iota, as he is your manager. I have to respect his decisions regarding his own staff, otherwise I'll undermine his authority, and I can't have that." "I'm sorry, but my hands are tied. The authorization stays unchanged. It is a bit of a conundrum really, as I gather you are working day and night on this. I nodded again and wondered why they called me in to state the bleeding obvious. In the silence that followed, the director let out a chuckle, and the High Commissioner started smiling. He grabbed a form off his desk and looked at it. What followed next was the most astonishing monologue I have ever heard, not because of eloquence, but because of implications. We had ordered you a plane ticket, but we have just decided that we need you to bring some supplies. So you will be going with your own car and will be reimbursed a first-class train ticket with sleeping quarters. As the supplies you will have to bring take up some space, we have decided that your room will be upgraded to a suite. Can't have you tripping over everything now, can we? Oh, and I understand it is quite heavy, probably too much for you to carry alone. Would your girlfriend be available that weekend to assist you carrying the supplies? We will reimburse her travel and stay on the same conditions, of course. Furthermore, you will get a per diem for 4 days, and as you will be working during the weekend and 2 days of your leave, your salary will of course be increased. Leave days on Saturday 150% and Sunday 200%. Now, where do I sign? Oh, and tell your girlfriend that I will be looking forward to hosting her at my table for the first evening. The director now burst out laughing. After a couple of seconds, he composed himself and added, "Oh, and as you are consulting for us as well in those days, we will pay you a consultancy fee as well, of course. Not a large one, but an administrative fee should do." Listening to this, I had to process what that meant. I would be reimbursed more than an entire month's salary for 4 days' work. But won't Frank protest? I mean, I don't want to get in trouble over this. High Commissioner looked at me and tried to look as innocent as possible. As far as I am aware, I have completely respected his authorization form, so I am not undermining his authority in any way. I've just added a new one to it. He continued with a smile that I can only describe as slightly evil. What we discussed here falls under confidential information. You are not aware of this conversation, and I have forgotten I have signed this document. I nodded. In the environment I worked in, you quickly learn to have no active memory of a lot of things. I stood up, walked to the door, and suddenly something hit me. What supplies do I have to transport? The director randomly picked up a slender folder marked Conference with at most 10 pages, reached out and gave it to me. Thought you'd never ask. This. Don't drop it. I understand it's heavy. My girlfriend and I had a lovely time, and as she was from Vienna, she was positively radiant, inviting her friends for coffee or drinks at a 5-star hotel suite. Oh, and Frank, he never found out, and up to this day, he thinks he taught me a lesson. Story number 2, management is watching our camera footage. I work at a hotel night audit. Management has been complaining we don't do the rounds properly. The justification they use for that is checking our cameras, which are only in a few parts of the building. If we aren't visible, the round was not done properly. Technically, that's a violation of the law, since you can only check footage in case of a crime. Long story short, I did my worst disco dances in the parking lot, Gangnam styled the elevators, shaked my bum in the gym with fingers pointed to the sky, crumped the 3rd hallway and walked like an Egyptian in between. Of course, a Hadaway finger point or 3 were included as well. I might get fired now, but damn if it wasn't worth it. If they complain, they admit to a felony. If they don't, I'm going to do this every shift from now on. This is John from /Bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to be the first to know when the next one drops, then subscribe and click on that notifications bell. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.